Let's get go. All right. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Edward Zazo. I'm the General Manager of the ESM Center of Excellence at Fusion 5. A few things about me. My team and I are very passionate about hyper-automation, which we call true enterprise service management. For many years now, I've been evangelizing and finding ways for IT departments to break that paradigm of being a cost center and become more critical to the operations of organizations, and in some cases turn it into a profit center. I love whiteboarding sessions and enterprise level and strategic discussions. And I'm a big advocate for human-centric design, especially around ESM and, more importantly, security controls, because it's very important to be able to allow your staff, employees, contractors to do their jobs without restricting them. But today, I'm very excited because the time has come now, especially post-COVID, for SIAM, to be a model that's accessible to all organizations, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So what Fusion 5 ESM does, these are all the areas, the 3 areas we help our customers with. I've been doing so for many years. We help you protect your employees, so you can reduce your reputational risk. It's all around managing the risk and having control around mobility and security. We also help our customers provide world-class tech support for their internal users. And of course, that's very important from a revenue leakage perspective. But today, we're going to dive into the far right. It's all about compliance. It's all about predicting costs, having governance around your processes and your SLAs. As a matter of fact, for the attendees that live and breathe this space, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about all these acronyms on the screen: CMDB, ESM, ITIL, ITAM, and of course today the topic is about SIAM. And a lot of you probably familiar with it, but today we're going to really do a deep dive into that space. Now, as an organization, we're always focusing on the business models of our customers. So from an ESM perspective, we have 2 strategic partnerships. From an Ivanti perspective, we remain very much committed. Ivanti leading the way in the edge technology and unified endpoint management as a whole. And today we introduce For.Me, who is addressing a significant gap in the service management market. So from an ESM perspective, when it comes to technology, when it's time to talk solutions, they're the 2 strategic partnerships that we have. Now, last time we drilled down into the 3-letter acronym itself, which is also in the name of my department. And I just wanted to remind everyone, or share with them, the day-to-day conversations we have with our customers, right? ESM as a concept has been around for many, many, many years. And internally within an organization, the whole purpose of ESM is to delight internal users. But I'm sure all of you are aware that that may be true in some departments and not in others. And some business units or even external organizations still rely heavily on email for request management, which in the current age of the customer, just is not really cutting it anymore. And there's a lot of human error, a lot of revenue leakage. So that's what ESM is all about. And of course, because lack of governance, lack of process, it made sense that ITSM disciplines get mirrored in enterprise service management, right? And extending it beyond the realm of IT. But again, ultimately, both ITSM and ESM aim to delight internal users. Now, what we're going to talk about today is service integration and management, right? So, slides. Here we go. So, for those of you who are familiar with SIAM, you may be familiar with it and already embracing it. And if you are, all the challenges, both technical and business and political, that are involved with being able to truly achieve a SIAM model, right? The thing I like most about it is, you know, post-COVID, it's become extremely relevant to businesses and organizations that really need to be in control of their supply chain and their service providers, right? So what it is, if you're familiar with ITIL, if you recall all references to service integration, that's really what we're talking about, having a service integration and management layer so that you can blur the lines between your internal service providers and external service providers. But as an organization, basically we de-emphasize who really provides the service. As long as it's provided, as long as the SLAs are met, that's what SIAM is all about, right? Having a single experience could be multi-branded, but the point is in your SIAM model, that's your go-to for your internal users. It's a single self-service experience or framework for all the services. Now, how those services get fulfilled, it doesn't really matter, right? So SIAM itself is not a process, but it does draw on ITSM and ESM, and that's why I took a few seconds, to talk about them. And I've also got a link there for you again, an independent view on what SIAM is and why it's important. But as I alluded to earlier, our customers really are trying to get in control of their supply chain and the service providers. They need to be able to transition them in and out, right, without breaking their business processes. And that's what SIAM helps you do. So I'm going to dive down a little bit deeper here before I introduce Stefan to you and hand over to him. What really excites us here at Fusion 5 is, we found a framework that's architected from the ground up to do SIAM, ESM, and ITSM all on a single platform, right? So if I can draw your attention to the graphic. If you look at the white circle, we're talking about, all the business units within your organization or hierarchy of organizations, if you have a shared services function, etc. Each of them historically may be on a different ticketing system. I guess that's what ESM tries to address. All of them may have different processes on how they fulfill things. And there's near none collaboration or effective collaboration between those processes and those departments, right? Now that's just internally. Now if you zoom out and now look at IT, there some independent studies done on this. Some IT departments offer in excess of 100 technical and business services. Also, on average, organizations have 13, external service providers, right? So this is only going to get more complex post-COVID and work from home, because from a globalization perspective as well, your service providers may operate in many countries. Some countries have different governance and compliance rules. GDPR comes to mind, data privacy, data sovereignty, et cetera, et cetera. So the model really needs to be able to cater for that, multilingual support or auto translation. And not only between you in the white circle and your external providers, but ultimately between your service providers as well, because you may have a master service provider, but some of the services they provide to you are through other service providers, right? So as you can imagine, having something architected to be able to support a model is becoming really important. Now, if we just look at it from a business perspective, and being able to report all SLAs in one place is the only way you'll be able to transition service providers in and out. If you can't identify who's performing well, who's not performing well, all in one place, be able to have the ability and the flexibility and the agility to, put your organization first and swap out providers without breaking your entire business process behind the scenes, that's business value right there, from a risk management perspective. So I hope you're starting to see why I'm so excited about for me, and this solution has finally arrived to Australia and New Zealand. Now, why is all this important though? Many reasons, as you can imagine, but above all, we as humans or as users or as employees we all expect more from our experience in the workplace. Full stop, right? So in our consumer lives, you know, with our utilities, banks, etc., it's all about the level and quality of service. So why should it be different when we go to work, right? So one such scenario, you know, a user, which we're about to see, we're going to follow her story. Beatrice, she's an employee. She's going to report an issue with one of her services. Now, Howard is, in this case, an IT administrator and a service owner. And in this scenario, the service is actually provided by a third party, right? So Frederick is from that party, and he will resolve the issue. And what you'll see here, although a simple use case, I'm sure you know that to the trained eye, you'll see a lot of things in the platform that fundamentally need to work in a certain way to be able to make this as seamless as possible for Beatrice and Howard. So at this stage, I'd like to introduce Stefan Hals. Stefan, over to you if you want to do a quick intro as I make you a presenter.
Perfect, thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Stefan Hals, and like I said, I work for me. I have been doing so for the better part of 3.5 years. I've known and sold the product for almost 8 years actually now, and I know it since the early days of development. But enough about me. Let's actually jump into the tool, and I'll show you what For Me is all about. Keep in mind, you can ask questions at any point. If I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow, simply tell me, and I'll slow down a little bit. So what we have here is, you should now see my screen. You can see I'm using Firefox. I just want to bring your attention to the tabs because we will be using these 3 tabs in today's session. The first tab that we see here is the self-service portal. It's the end user experience that we're going to look at. The second tab, which we're also going to look at, is the support agent or IT administrator interface. And the third is the service providers interface. Yeah. So we're gonna, each tab is essentially a single person. So rather than logging in and logging out of the tool, I thought it would be easier if I simply kept those open as tabs. Yeah. So the first thing I want to talk about is, For Me is a service management tool. It has its roots with our founders coming from BMC Software and ServiceNow. And our goal is essentially to make a tool, to provide you with a tool that is so accessible that you can administer and adapt it to your needs as you need. Yeah. And I guess that's one of the reasons why Ed and his team were so excited about For Me. So from a self-service side, what there's to say about this here is, you can make this your own. For Me runs on HTML and CSS in the self-service design, where you can essentially brand or make it look like whatever it is that you want to look like. So typically when I do customers for prospects, I take their corporate identity or their corporate design, and I embed it into the self-service. So here we have a company called Widget. We see the company logo. There's a search bar. It could also be a chatbot. We also provide you with an out-of-the-box chatbot functionality, and it just sits in the same place. I prefer the search bar because people are simply used to Google from their private life. And then, you know, you can place certain things, like you can allow the customer to, or the end user to click through the service catalog or view all of their requests and incidents, yeah, or have highlighted topics like security incident, where the customer logs a security incident. There's buttons below, and there's many things that you can do with the user interface. Essentially, the sky's the limit because this is HTML, right? So you can build your own website. Typically, however, this is something that our partners, so in this case, Fusion 5, helps with getting on board. But let's get down to our use case, right? So we're in here as Beatrice Baldwin. Yeah? She's a regular user, and she's sitting at her work desk, and everything's going great. She's had her morning coffee, but her internet seems a bit slow, right? So what she's going to do is she goes to the self-service portal. Now, she could have, we could have done this on mobile, but I have to be honest with you, I wasn't game enough to share my screen from 2 devices in one meeting, but For Me is of course available on iOS, Android, on small devices, and essentially on any screen that you have out there today. So Beatrice puts this in, and the first thing she sees when she puts in internet is slow. She can see the Office network, right? You can see we've tested this issue before, yeah, to make sure the demo runs smoothly. But essentially, she would see the Office network as a service here, yeah. And when she clicks on it, she can see what is called standard requests. Now, those are things you, as an organization, would essentially provide the users with when they are frequent, yeah, or when you want to make something convenient. So you essentially use templates for the user to reconsume. You can see we also see knowledge articles here, right? So in the same place, because it's all related to the service Office network, you see the relevant knowledge articles. Yeah. However, what we're doing right now actually has nothing to do with this. We're actually going to log an incident, so we're going to click none of the above. Yeah. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say internet seems to be a bit slow today. Is there any reason why our internet is slow today? So here we are. We can now, this is, as you can see, this is a rich text file, so I could format this, I could enter quotes, I could also add videos or upload images, but adding images we're going to take a look at later. Or I could also mention a colleague if I wanted to loop her in, and that works the same as it does essentially on WhatsApp or any other social media platforms. Again, this is something we're going to look at later. For now, we're just going to log the request, the incident, and as you can see, the status is assigned. It's shown to the user. It's an incident, and it's assigned to the team operations, and we already have a resolution target, right? So we can expect this issue to be solved for us tomorrow at 6. Okay, so that's the end user perspective. I'm going to quickly go out of here, go to the standard landing page, and just to prepare for when we come back. Yeah. Now, I have switched to Howard Tanner's view. Howard Tanner is our IT administrator or support agent. Yeah? And you can see in the user interface, for me, its main navigation essentially happens over these 5 icons, and we're going to go into 2 today. For those of you who want to see more, happy to jump on a one-to-one demo, or you simply play with this yourself, which it will talk to a little bit more later. So what I can see here is my inbox, right? This is all that I have to do. Now, because I am the coordinator of the team that I'm a part of, I also see incidents and requests that haven't been assigned to the team yet. Yeah? And ours, the one that just came in, sits at the top. Yeah? What do we see here? We have a request ID, of course, that I'm going to keep an eye on this, right? So we have the request ID 80234. Yeah. It is an incident, the status is assigned, and the response target is tomorrow. Yeah. We can see who requested this. Now, whenever in For Me you see something blue, it is a SaaS application, meaning you can click it and it will open a little preview pane, right? So because we've clicked on Beatrice, it will show the details of Beatrice, where she's based out of, what skill pools she's part of. And as you can see, you could also call her. So For Me has built in a out of the box at no charge calling tool, yeah, that we provide our customers with. So the service that is affected, we've already talked to this. Yeah, it's the Houston Office network. If I quickly wanted to take a look, however, how this sits within my service catalog, I click on this gear icon at the top and I open what is called the Service Navigator. Now, the Service Navigator essentially takes the information from the request. It is context sensitive, yeah, and says, okay, you're at the Houston Office network. That's the service here, and you have 3 supporting services that keep this service going. Yeah. Now, I could, in the Service Navigator, drill down, and let's just do this for now. If I click on Internet Access Houston, I see that it provides multiple, that is sort of a key point to providing multiple other remote services for essentially for each site that we have in this demo instance. And the rectangular gray things are configuration items, right? So I can see this is how it's all set up. So let's go back to the request and take a look at what else we have here. We have here the team operations that is assigned to, as I said, I am Howard Tanner. I'm a member of this team and I'm the coordinator. I see the resolution target, Beatrice's note, and I can see that one SLA is currently affected. Note that I've made a couple of hints here that I haven't answered to yet, which I will get back to later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take this issue myself. I'm not going to forward it to anybody else. I could forward this to a colleague and add an internal note if I wanted to, that the user can't see. But for now, I'm actually going to start working on this myself. So I'm going to hit the play button, which means it now changed to a resolution target and no longer a response target. Status is in progress. But I'm actually going to edit it because I want to send that user a note. So what I want to do is I need a screenshot because I need to understand what her definition of slow is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, can you please provide a screenshot so that I can better understand what slow means? So I'm going to leave it like that, but I'm going to highlight this. And I spent 5 minutes on this. You don't have to, but you can include in the setup. But for me, it essentially asks you, do you want to enable time tracking, and do you want to use billable or non-billable hours? And then it essentially keeps track of the cost per request. So what I forgot to do is I forgot to actually do the important thing is the status waiting for customer sends the user an email notification with this note upon save. So the user gets a link to the ticket. But also, as you can see, this clock has been stopped right now. So it says waiting for customer. Beatrice received an email. Now we're going to pretend we received that email by going into the self-service portal and looking at my requests. And if Beatrice would click on this URL or simply reply to the email, she would land here, right? She can add a note. So what I'm going to do is, of course, here it is, and I've added a screenshot here from earlier from speedtest.net, and essentially, I just made a quick update on the issue. Notice how fast it was just to drag and drop in an image and it was already uploaded. Keep in mind the quality of that image is the actual image quality so poor. Now, the request is back. It's still assigned with me, but notice how it automatically changed to assigned, and the resolution target has popped back to 2 days. This helps me, but I actually now think in my root cause analysis, because remember how we have the supporting services. I can pop this open over here. We call this the service hierarchy browser. I can see the supporting services. But let's open it in edit mode because I actually think there's something going on here. And what I can see is that in my child services, I can see that the Internet Access Houston already has an incident against this. And I can see this because it's the one that's not green. Below here, I would also see templates or knowledge articles or anything else that is relevant at this point. But I actually think it has to do with the Internet being a bit slow, with the actual access point. So what I can do is I can either drag and drop this in here, or I can click this apply button. And notice what will happen here at the assignment area. Because the Internet access is a service that is provided by an external party, if I drag and drop this in here, you will have noticed some fields have been grayed out now. I can no longer choose a team. I can no longer choose a member. This is all locked, right? but I can see the configuration items again that we looked at earlier. I'm going to hit save. So because what is happening now, this request, this incident has now been pushed to the instance, or we call this an account, to the account of the service provider. Yeah. You can also see the pickup target has completely changed because we have added a second SLA. Now, for those of you wondering, yes, For.me is capable out of the box from the get-go. There's no hidden tricks here. There's nothing to configure or set up. We can do multi-SLA tracking out of the box, right? Nothing needed. It works right from the get-go. Yeah. So let's switch into the service provider account, and I'm gonna, for the second time, quickly draw attention to the request ID. So we switch over to the service provider account. Notice it's the same, they're on For.me, but hang on a minute. The request ID in the service provider account matches the one from my IT account. Now, for those of you having worked with providers and integrations between IT service management tools, you know that this is a big deal. Yeah? And we're not, this works, right? We have many companies that have what we call trusts, between each other and that exchange tickets. And it's just nice to always have the same reference point if you need it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just very simply pretend that I've now analyzed the request here. I'm going to switch into edit mode. I can again see Beatrice. Notice I can't actually access the information like before. Well, that's because she comes from a totally different instance. Yeah. And I am going to close this request. I'm going to pretend it's solved. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the status to completed. I'm going to choose a completion reason and say it's solved. And notice how this appeared. This request will be returned. It actually just informs me that the request will be returned to the team that Howard Tanner is a part of, because those are the guys that are ultimately going to close the ticket. The configuration item became mandatory because we have set it up to become mandatory, and I can simply drag and drop this in. Yeah. Now I'm going to add a quick note, and I'm going to say, and this is where For.me, in my opinion, becomes unbelievable. Keep in mind, these are two totally different, separate accounts of For.me with their own data. They have a trust where they share the service. But what I can do from here is I can say, hey, Beatrice. So I can tag the user that has been contextually moved along with this request or with this incident. And I can say, Beatrice, thank you for spotting this issue and for reporting it. So and then I'm going to add a line because I also want to thank Howard. Yeah, and I want to notify him, Howard, this issue has been resolved. We installed the late installed. We simply rebooted the access point. Yeah? So, but I do want to add an internal note also, and I want to tell my colleague Michael to update the CMDB. Can you please update the CMDB because I switched out the access point hardware. So here we are. I spent 5 minutes on this. And the last thing I wanted to show you is I can see, again, this is true across accounts, right? I can see who else is viewing this record. So if Beatrice was looking at the same record, I would also see that here. Yeah. So I'm done. I've saved this. I'm going to complete this request. Let's go back to Howard, see what happened there. So on Howard's side, I've just got a notification that this request has come back to me. And notice the resolution target has gone back to 2 days because Frederick has actually solved this. Yeah. So now it's back to me to keep up my SLA and solve this because, as we can see, Frederick has completed this request in the other account. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to close this request off as well. It seems to be working. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to say this has been solved. I'm going to say Frederick. Oh, Frederick, thank you for your swift response. Beatrice, let me know if there is anything else I can do for you. So I'm going to log this as non-billable support hours. I'm going to save it, and the record is closed and the case is done. It also automatically, of course, disappears from my inbox. So what happened is Beatrice got an email notification, and we're going to, again, go back into the self-service portal to the starting screen. Beatrice got an email notification where she had to choose between are you satisfied or are you dissatisfied? Yeah? Now, if Beatrice hits the dissatisfied button, she can choose to reopen this incident. But I'm actually going to say I was satisfied with this, with the handling of this request, and it's all done, which also means I can no longer reopen this request because I was satisfied, right? So to finish off, I wanted to quickly show you, I want to go back to Howard. I know we've switched around a lot, but I wanted to show you the reporting end and what impact it has. So because I'm Howard, I am the service owner, or I'm the one responsible for this service provider. I'm going into the reports area for me. Now, there's lots of dashboards that for me has out of the box where I could see request management KPIs or customer satisfaction reports. Again, of course, if you click on these records, it will immediately show you the right data. It will bring you to the right point. I have a full list of reports. I think there's more than 300 in there. Should be, yeah, 329. You can see that down here. I have the SLA reports. There's one that has a very cool name, FLSA, that's First Line Support Agreement. It's essentially a dedicated report that we automatically track for the performance on the service desk, if you wish. But then it becomes interesting, right? Because I can see provider and customer reports. And that's where I wanted to go, because I wanted to see for one of my providers for GlobalNet what their performance is. Yeah? And I can see the company GlobalNet provides the following 4 services to us: internet access, LAN, secure remote access, and WAN. Yeah? And I can see that there's 15 SLAs behind those 4 services. So there's multiple branches or multiple sites that we offer the service to. For the month of May, which is a fairly new month, we have 2 new requests. 5 are still open, and all 5 of those seem to have violated their target. Now, if I want to look into that, when I have the review with the service provider, I can simply click on that, and as you can see, it will drag this across, and I can review them. I can also see that the customer satisfaction is at 100% with, however, a 50% response rate. Yeah. So that was essentially the full cycle that I wanted to show you. You have now gotten a first impression of what For Me is like. Of course, this was a very generic demo, not tailored to any of your needs, but I hope it gave you a good understanding of what the tool is capable of and why Fusion is so excited to be partnering with us in getting into the Australia-New Zealand market. If my accent was too weird, I'm originally Austrian. I have been married to an Aussie for 10 years. I hope it was understandable, and I will hand back to Ed now. Thanks, Ed, for having me.
Thank you very, very much, Stefan. That was awesome. So just to recap what you saw, such a simple yet important scenario where there's a lot going on, as you saw, and I guess today was meant to be a teaser. We did receive a few questions which I've answered, but please send some more. We're about to wrap up. The only thing I want to leave with you is, again, we mentioned that For Me is addressing a gap in the service management market, and wanted to expand on that a little bit. So we're usually the business units that are interested to join on the same platform, even if they're not ITIL aligned, are usually, you know, HR, facilities, managed services, and payroll. And of course, we all know from a Cyan perspective, they may have different needs, you know, privacy. You saw one of the features Stefan mentioned, you know, you can actually not share the full details of the people. You know, and then what I want to share with you here is we did share an IT example, but it actually doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? So that's the takeaway point. You know, for me, has customers in all market segments, you know, so start thinking public services, non-for-profit, you know, the portal can be available to the general public. Think fleet and reservation, you know, we will probably organize a webinar in the second half of the year where we can actually dive down into how users can request assets of any kind, you know, being able to book them, reserve them, and then just that life cycle is supposed to work out of the box, keep your CMDB up to date and all that really cool stuff. Corporate performance, I see this a lot, you know, it's an umbrella for like legal, business intelligence, PMO types of requests, project requests, people that need to actually track project risks and issues and be able to run both Agile and Prince2 types of projects, whether they're IT or not. And of course, you know, apply some limitless thinking. So, you know, if you're in the business of providing innovation, no matter in what industry or high-tech services or even patient care and healthcare, this is a framework that actually works in that multi-service provider paradigm. So today was meant to be a teaser, folks. What's next? What usually happens? I mean, you know, we've known for me for the last 2-3 months, and we've already got our first batch of customers that are going to go live with this stuff. And usually what happens next after the first presentation is customers say, well, can we get our hands on it? So absolutely, you know, we'd love to show you more. That's the man you need to reach out to. And, you know, at around, you know, $60 per user per month for me is available to all of us. And if you remember my very first slide where I said what the things I'm passionate about, the last bullet point was I'm so excited that Cyan now can be a reality and is accessible to everyone. We're going to go to questions now. I will stay on the line for a little bit, but we've got another fresh approach for you next week, folks. So if you visit our website or the LinkedIn Fusion 5 events page, next Tuesday we're applying a very similar approach to a market segment that is confusing, that a lot of customers ask us for help and clarity, and around enterprise mobility and security. So please register for that. Once again, thank you, Stefan. That was awesome, and thank you all for attending. We're going to go and check questions.